Good morning, CLC. I invite you in this moment to take a nice, deep breath, filling your lungs with cool, calming oxygen. And as you release this breath, release all stress and tension, all doubt and anxiety. Just let it go for now. Take another nice, deep, cleansing breath and let the radiant light of Spirit touch you, breathing out all that no longer serves you. Allow your body to relax in this moment and allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose.
I choose.
I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass, In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude and saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Well, good morning. Those in the room, those in their rooms. This is part 3 of a 5-part series. So you're right smack dab in the middle of something here. And weeks 1 and 2 are online. Weeks 4 and 5 are yet to come. On week 5, the young lady who opened the service today, Danielle Mercadale, practitioner extraordinaire, will be our special speaker. You do not want to miss that. It's January 29th, 2 weeks from today. Spiritual mind treatment is a method of mental and spiritual alignment. It sort of looks like prayer, only it's got some distinctive qualities, as we went over in the first 2 weeks of the series. Distinctive quality number 1 is that it's not what we're praying to that makes the difference, we believe. It's what we're praying from. We're praying from a place in consciousness that accepts our unity with the one life that we think of as God. And how we think of as God in this teaching, or how we discuss it in this teaching, you think of it how you think of it, and I'm not here to tell you how you should. But how it's expressed in the science of mind teaching is that God is all there is. And that's not so much that we take the old idea of God and pump it full of air to where it's all there is, as that we redefine the nature of reality, the nature of the universe, the nature of everything, as being that which, for want of a better name, we call God. There is an intelligence, and there's a purpose, and there's a meaning that's present equally at every point within creation. God is not exhausted by its creation. It's not absorbed by its creation. This is a line in a body of material called the Declaration of Principles, or What We Believe, that Ernest Holmes wrote as What I Believe in 1927. He's got a line in there that God or Spirit is not absorbed by its own creation. And this generates a lot of question. What does he mean by that? Well, the way I think of it, it's like if you spread jam on toast, it gets thinner at the edges. Okay? And you move it around some more with the knife to try to evenly distribute it, but it's never quite evenly distributed. It's all right. There's always a thinner, plus the bread probably has some holes in it. And so some of this stuff goes, and so you could spend all day really trying to spread the jam on toast to where it's equally distributed, and it's going to be more one place than it is another. Spirit is not like that because it's not finite. Everything else is like that. Everything else is like, well, are you having a nice day today? Okay. How does it rate in the top 25 nice days that you've had in X period of time? You know, everything is comparative. Everything is therefore competitive in material reality. But in spiritual reality, in spiritual essence, it's all one. So this is the place from which we pray. And that's what we talked about in the first week. The second week, last week, it was about, now that being so, what do I do with this? Well, I have to realize that I am that. I am that. It's not just that, it's I am that. I am part of this one creation. Therefore, everything that exists in potential is potentially located in me. It's right where I am. You're going to hear a little prosperity song later in the service. And the little prosperity, am I giving too much away here? Okay. The little prosperity song, the idea there is that the prosperity that you might seek is right where you are. The harmony that you might seek is right where you are. The loving kindness that you might seek is right where you are. Because it couldn't be anywhere else. Because spirit is all there is, therefore everything is multi-locatable within spirit, fully present at every point that spirit is. And the hard part of that, wrapping our minds around that, is not that there's an infinite reality that spirit is all there is. The hard part, if there is a hard part, the challenging part, we can hedge a little bit here. The part it takes a while to develop is the realization that I am that, right here, as I am now. Not as I will be after I read the next book. Not as I will be after I take the next class, but as I am right now. All of creation is having an exuberant experience of itself through me right now, today, just as I am. And people hear that and it scares them. I know this because it scared me when I first heard it. And that doesn't mean that because it scared me, it scares everybody. But I've watched it over the years. I'm watching some right now. I'm not singling anyone out here, but I'm just saying that look is like, whoa. It means just as I am. There's an old hymn, just as I am. Has a kind of a different inference. Takes the expression in a different direction. But just as you are right now, just as I am right now, we stand right at the center of spirit. So what today is about is, now that we know that, what do we do? What becomes possible? And this is essentially the apex of the process, if you imagine it as sort of a pyramid that has 2 steps up, a third at the top, and then 2 steps down. The 2 steps up are the recognition of the oneness of everything and our unification with that, or our identification with that. And in those first 2 steps, a meditative process, which leads us to the third of today of realization, which will be followed by thanksgiving and release. The realization that we're having today is that because I am everything as just described, the one life having an experience of itself through me at this time in this world, certain things are possible for me. Like what? Like whatever I really make up my mind to. What are my potentials? What are my possibilities? What do I want to have happen? What do I wish to manifest in my life? And so I have some suggestions for today along the lines of manifestation, which is think big. Think big. Think about a context for your life. What is your life a stand for? What is your life a stand for? What is it that you feel are your values that are unimpeachable, unquestionable? That from day one you have felt like this is the most important thing, or the most important handful of things if you can't single out one thing. And out of this you develop a context for your life in which everything else is a piece, a building block. For example, people say, well, I'd love to have money. There was a whole big conversation last week because the mega millions or meta millions, metaphysical million, whatever it was, hit like $750 million. And lines were forming at stores to buy these tickets and stuff, which is fine. It's entertainment, it's amusement, and somebody won, actually. Which leads me to talk about tithing. No. If you're there in the state of Maine with $750 million, and no, we don't need it. Thank you. Yeah. You come in next week, and there's like 200-piece orchestra and all of this, right? The music department got funded. Whoa. If you want money, what do you want it for? What do you want it for? What do you like? What do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? What kind of life are you having? What is the stand that your life is making? This is the question to ask yourself, you know? Rather than, well, if I had money, then I'd have all of this money, and then I could buy lots of stuff, and then I'd have lots of stuff. And then I'd get to sit with my lots of stuff, and you know what I could do with my stuff is I could show it off to other people who have less stuff. Invite them over and say, look at my, isn't this nice stuff? This is wonderful. Is your stuff as nice as my stuff? No, it isn't. That's sad, isn't it? You know? And then they'd leave, and I'd feel all better about myself, except would I really feel better about myself? Or would there be this kind of sadness in me that my life had come to this, that I had to show stuff off to impress other people in order to get some shred of self-esteem out of the situation, right? And so, you know, that's not really it. Or what if I had lots of friends? What if I had 1 million people that I knew? Real friends, not just social media friends, but actual in-the-flesh friends. What if I had lots and lots of friends, you know? And why would I want lots and lots of friends? Maybe it's so I could show the people who live in my head from a long time ago who said, I don't like you, or you'll never be popular, or you're strange, go away, or something like that. I could show them that today I'm loved and friended, and I have all this army of people at my back who, you know, right? And then among my friends, I'm lonely. You see, you want to get to this. Your song that you just did touched on this in its lyrics just beautifully. You know, who am I really? Who am I really? Who do I want to be? Why do I want what I want? And this is not about changing what we want as much as it is about examining it. The unexamined life, wasn't that Thoreau? Socrates, thank you. It was Socrates. I always update people. It was Socrates, famously, who said, the unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life. So we want to look at the life that we have and the life that we want. To know what we want. Because the possibilities are endless. And sometimes life materially presents us with too many options. Have you ever been in a store, let's say, where you went for, I don't know, a loaf of bread, and you had in mind the kind of bread you wanted, and you get to the bread aisle, and it goes on forever. There's every kind of bread from every country of the earth, and they're busy baking some more right now in the bakery of this store to put out there, and you're like, I'm lost. I thought I knew what I wanted in terms of bread, and this is, right? And you go, well, they're busy. They're making more stuff. I know the supply chain took a hit in the pandemic, but by and large, they're making more stuff now than ever. And it's like, so we're presented constantly with choices. And the biggest choice, obviously, that we're presented with is, how do I choose to feel about myself? How do I choose to interpret reality so as to have the most salutary experience of reality? Tomorrow we will commemorate what would have been the 94th birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is kind of amazing to me in the sense that we often think of people as having lived 1 million years ago. Dr. Martin Luther King, you know, because he's been a postage stamp, and he's gone through all of the commemorations, and now his birthday is a national holiday. We think he's been around forever. 94, he could still be with us. He could still, you know, former President Jimmy Carter's 98, you know. And so it's like, yeah, okay, that's old in Earth terms, but he could still be here, and I wonder what he would think. I wonder what he's thinking now about how things have gone, and I wonder how we'd be different here if he hadn't lost his life in '68, if he had been with us this whole time. But his words are with us this whole time. And I looked up, as I do frequently, not just for this day every year, but I turn to his words often because they're brilliant. Not only did he stand for what I stand for, so I feel aligned with him spiritually and in other ways, but he had a great way of putting things, a wonderful use of words. And in the very last Sunday sermon he ever gave, which was not in Atlanta but in Washington, D.C. at the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul, where he was invited as a guest speaker early in '68, he said that if we're going to have this new world of peace and brotherhood and oneness, if we're going to succeed in all of this, we have to create a new mental response, a new mental response. And that, my friends, is really the key to everything. Would you like a whole new world for your life? It requires a new mental response. If it doesn't get a new mental response, it keeps churning away the way it had been in your experience. And here we draw this interesting distinction between reality and experience, or between the absolute and the relative. We want more things to be absolute than they are and fewer things to be relative. I'm sorry, but it doesn't shake out that way. There is one absolute, which is the I am, that's having an experience of itself as we've determined right now by means of us. And then there's our interpretation of that, which is what we get to keep. It's what sits in our lap, is our interpretation of reality. So when I've been over this with you before in lots of different ways, lots of different times, year in, year out. Let's say it's a beautiful day outside today. Oh, yeah? What about it's beautiful? Well, I'm speaking subjectively. You know, could be raining, thundering, snowing, who knows what. And it's, you call it a beautiful day. Part of that's an affirmation, right? I'm going to have a great day today. Well, what does that even mean? I don't know, but I'll know it when I feel it, you know? And so it's the subjectively interpreted reality. So how are we doing in life? How is your life going right now? You cannot measure this objectively and come away satisfied. You just flat can't. People try. Say, my life is going fabulously because I have a house full of stuff and I had the neighbors over to look at it last night. My life is going fabulously because I had bought a yacht, you know. And as I said a few weeks ago, better than having a boat is having a friend with a boat. But, you know, my life is going great because I've got documents in my pocket that tell me it is. My life is good. No, it cannot be objectively qualified. Quantified maybe, but not qualified. No, that's subjectively. And that's at the feeling level. And that's why we work at the feeling level so much. God is all there is. Do you feel that? You're not going to feel that just based on my saying, do you feel that? Or based even, unless we really hit it out of the park, based on a Sunday together in this room or at home. It's going to take some work, some repetition, some spiritual practice to cultivate that feeling of yes, that feeling of acceptance, so that when you speak your affirmation, it rings true to you. And as discussed before many times, the only person you have to sell your affirmation to is you. I mean, it really falls apart if you put it on the street. I am now this, that, and the other thing. Oh, yeah, says the world. Oh, yeah, says the committee in your head, your whole family, you know. They're all of your fifth grade class, all of these people. Oh, yeah, who do you think you are? Which is not to say they don't all, you know, they don't all like you, or they would all necessarily do that, but they could. They could, especially if they feel threatened within themselves, as sometimes we do. How do you know if you feel threatened? Have you seen anyone else succeed and resented them for it? Have you seen anybody else fall in love, you know, and resented them for it? It's like, look at these two. Ooh, that's disgusting. You know, they're holding hands. They love each other, and that's great. Why? Well, why am I having this visceral response toward these people? Because I'm lonely. You know, I mean, that's just, isn't that clear? Or wealth, you know. You see wealthy-looking people doing what wealthy people do, and you say, you know, wealthy people are miserable and they're evil and they're corrupt and they're this and it's that. It's like, who asked you? any way to weigh in and have an opinion. Why are you having this opinion right now, and why is it so vicious? Because you feel lack. Because I feel lack, you know? So then it's telling us about our own unhealed issues when we have these kinds of responses to things. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. That's good information. That's good information. It's all good information. Our resentments are good information. Our regrets are good information. This does not mean we do not dismiss the information or dismiss the carrier of the information once we have it, but it is good information. We can heal our regrets and heal our resentments, but let's know that we have them and that they've kind of polluted the culture of how we've been approaching life. That's good to know. It'll also help us understand when we see other people kind of go off randomly at things and we wonder why. We'll say, well, that's an unhealed issue right there. It's none of our business to get into it with them unless they ask us, you know. But you can kind of tell that. And there are examples of this galore. But, you know, like somebody driving like a maniac through traffic, well, there's something going on there that's not about you, even though they just went by you. You know, it's not about you. It's not about the moment that they're in. They're having a blind kind of reaction that's based on trauma. A lot of us react to trauma. This is the stuff that we're learning about. Now, this doesn't sound terribly inspiring. I realize this is the work that we do. But you got to understand what's back of what you want in order to have it and treasure it. You can get it without doing this, but you can't keep it. You know, you just flat can't. I mean, people do this all the time. They buy the lottery ticket and they're like, God, I won. Look at this, you know. And probably metaphysicians run to them and say, what were you thinking? What was your affirmation? I want to write it down. Because you got, and they're like, I never in a million years thought this was going to happen. That's because we live in a patterning intelligence that works very strangely, and it works off of intentions that were set long ago and forgotten. It works off of energies that we're not completely clear on. And you also hear that people come into lots of money, then the money kind of goes away. I maintain that what people are after is not lots of money. I maintain that what people are after is a sense of value, a sense of, you know, creativity, a sense of imagination, a sense of magic, a sense of wonder in life. This is what people really seek. Context, meaning, purpose. This is what people, including me, really, really seek. And in order to have that and maintain that requires an understanding of what it is about that that's so appealing. I want to feel like I'm partnered with by a higher power that knows me as itself, doesn't interfere, doesn't say, just let me do that. I love that. I love that idea. Just get out of the way. Just let me do that. No, it's go. Do your thing, you know. And so this is what I affirm for myself, and it's what I encourage you to affirm for yourself. Is that right now I know who I am, and I love who I am, and I stand in the midst of infinite possibilities which are communicating themselves to me right now in plain English. Communicating themselves to me as opportunities for, or whatever your language of preference is, communicating themselves to me in a manner in which I can understand and use. And I can do this. I read something recently I thought was great. It says imagination is not just making stuff up. Imagination is perception. Imagination is observation. And the combining of things as perceived into patterns so as to then, I'm adding a lot on to what I read, but so as to make adaptations. So as to adapt, because if you look at like this laptop that Danielle's on right now, that's an adaptation of a typewriter. You know, it really is. And a typewriter was an adaptation of the written hand, and the written hand was an adaptation of chiseled stone stuff and so on. Everything is a perfection of something else. And now everything that's in that piano with the strings and the hammers and whatnot is in this device over here. It's got fewer keys, but it'll do everything but walk the dog. And so Everything. And so it took for somebody to say, you know, what if we took an acoustic instrument over here and we digitized it over here? Somebody saw that. Somebody did that. And that's how invention works. And that's how discovery and improvement works. And we call that imagination. We say, oh, what a terrific imagination that person had. What unique genius they possessed. Well, the key to that was really they paid attention. So what we want to pay attention to is that we've been manifesting something the whole time. Before you ever heard of science of mind. This is a key point. Now, I think I'll end with it because we're running long. We've been using the science of mind our whole lives. You did not start using the science of mind when you first heard about it in this place or read a book or whatever. And you're like, whoa, Ernest Holmes. He didn't kickstart the science of mind. He said there is one. He said there is one. And here's sort of how it works. With plenty of room for personal adaptation, personal interpretation. But you and I have been manifesting something from the get-go. When you were in the crib, even with the limited information base that you had at that time, practically speaking, you were going to say, I wonder, you know, whenever I shriek, people come running. You know? Whenever I'm wet or hungry or cold or sleepy or pretty much anything, when I let out a shriek, people come running. Your cat kind of learned the same thing. You know, so a lot of it's conditioning. So we started doing things of a cause-effect nature because they worked. Before we knew that there was a whole spiritual principle behind all of this. So now what we're learning to do is realize that at this stage of the game, with our new sophisticated outlook on things and our way of kind of distancing ourselves from, well, I don't mean to judge, but here's one anyway, you know. Right, yeah. This really isn't, you know, I really don't care, but I'm dying inside, you know. Yeah, with that new sophisticated kind of modern viewpoint that we develop as we age, to get back to the idea that there is something that if you call upon it, it will answer. And if you call upon it as though it were already answering, it will reveal things to you that will appear like magic, that will appear like miracles. The world will open up to you. And you'll see that right where you are now, unchanged, unimproved, not a second later than this moment, you'll see that where you are right now, you stand at the point of limitless opportunity. That's the affirmation step or the realization step. It's known by either name. The third step of treatment, where you plug in an affirmation into the idea of spirit being all there is and you being part of it. Next week, we'll talk about the gratitude step, the Thanksgiving step, which we talked about at some length in November in Thanksgiving month, but there's some other points I want to make about it that we didn't then next week, and then Danielle will conclude this series with release into, okay? So Lisa's going to take you through a spiritual mind treatment, Reverend Lisa, at the end of the service, and you'll get to hear all 5 steps in order, with the understanding that she's very good at this, and she's been doing this a long time. So yeah, you see her nodding, real long time, and so you might sit there and say, whoa, man, I don't know if I have those words. And you'll check your pockets for those words. You know, I don't know if I have those words. No, but you have your words. You have your words. Go with the feeling that she's conveying in the treatment. That's the thing. That's the thing. So thank you for your kind attention. And now we're going to have, what do we have now? Some announcements.
I would like to thank you all for being here. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your love. Thank you for all the monetary donations that you give us. It is valued. It is appreciated. It is wanted, Jesse. It is wanted. Whatever you give us is wanted and greatly appreciated. It's because of what you give to us that we could be here and giving back to you. So thank you for all that you are, all that you do, and all that you give. And I invite you now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. And now,
the bookstore will be open for a few minutes after the service. Please feel free to run over there, and maybe we have the Untethered Spirit, and if we don't, you can ask for it. Okay, we do. So, because when somebody recommends a book to you, they're telling you something about themselves. So if for no other reason than I now know that it's one of Danielle's favorite books, I want to go read it because that will tell me something about Danielle. So, yeah, music and books will tell you a whole lot about a person. Now, just because Jesse was talking about perception, there's this quote that has come across my newsfeed. Y'all know who Billy Connolly is? It's from Monty Python. Okay? So, take this. I'm quoting Billy Connolly. I hate all those weathermen who tell you that rain is bad weather. There's no such thing as bad weather, just the wrong clothing. So get yourself a sexy raincoat and live a little. All right? That is what perception is. That is absolutely what perception is. Get a raincoat. Get a sexy little raincoat and go live a little. Go dance in the rain. Now, if it is lightning, I don't encourage that. But, and I will also disagree with him. There is such a thing as bad weather. We live in hurricane country. And if you've been paying any attention to the news at all, California is about to slide off the continent into the ocean. They have gotten so much rain.
They've been praying and treating for rain for decades.
Yes. It's just they didn't need it all in 10 days. They needed it spread out a little bit. So that is where I am going to head in treatment, is for their safety, their resources, and that the rain will, yeah, they need it, but kind of spread out a little bit. We don't need it all. It's just like when we had Harvey. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but we actually lost it was either a millimeter or centimeter in elevation because there was so much water at one time. Like, our elevation went down, and we're already pretty close to sea level. We don't need any more of that. Okay, so I'm just telling you what my intention is in this treatment, and then we'll see what I actually treat for. Because once I get going, I hand the keys over to God and let him drive. Okay, so there is one power, one presence, one life, one love. And each and every one of us are channels for that love. We live that life. We channel that power. We channel that love. We are that presence. We are the physical representation of that presence. We are that presence made manifest. And in that is where all amazingness can happen. And so I speak my word now for all of those people in California who are experiencing this unprecedented weather, that they are safe, that they are dry, that the resources that they need to manage what is going on are on their way to them now. I hold them in my arms, metaphorically, as I know that Spirit holds them all of the time. And I wish for them peace and the feeling of safety as they listen to the rain. And that the rain spreads itself out a little so that everyone can take a nice deep breath as it goes on. Yes, the reservoirs are filling up. And land is getting a good and deep drink. And the people and the animals and the plants are thriving under this. And I know this with all of the gratitude in my being. And I am grateful for a teaching that teaches me that I don't have to beg, I don't have to plead. I simply have to ask and be willing to receive. I'm grateful for this place that is my community. I am grateful for each and every one of you. I'm grateful for the ministers, the musicians, the technology. And I'm just grateful because grateful is another word for love. And I relax and release my word into law, knowing that it is done. Because it is done by something bigger than me. And yet, I, just as you, are an integral part of it. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose
I
it.
trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
And I love it.
And I love it.
So it is.
And so it is.